Welcome to the deep dive. Ever ever finish a chat and feel like you either just gave in to avoid trouble?
Kept the peace, but didn't really say what you thought.
Exactly, or maybe
Yeah.
the opposite, you know. You made your point, but things felt a bit tense afterwards.
Yeah, ruffled some feathers. Happens all the time.
Right. And navigating agreement and maybe especially disagreement in English, it's something we do constantly.
Every day. Work meetings, online, just talking to friends.
Yeah, it's way more than just picking the right words. It's sort of the engine of good communication, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And, the source material you sent over, it really zeroes in on this brilliantly. It's not just rules.
No, it's more like an exploration.
Yeah, an exploration of the art of dealing with different views.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to, crack open this source, pull out the key insights, the real stuff, not just the surface level,
Get to the core of it.
and hopefully equip you listening to agree and disagree with clarity, yeah, but also diplomacy and confidence too.
That confidence piece is key. Let's get into it.
Okay, so why does this matter so much? The source starts right there.
It does. And it gets straight to the point. Look, disagreements aren't just, possible. They will happen.
Right. It's baked into human interaction if it's meaningful at all.
Exactly. So trying to dodge them completely, it's kind of futile. The real skill, the source argues, is all about how you respond when they pop up.
That's a really useful way to frame it. It's not about eliminating conflict. It's about managing the response in the conflict. And the source really emphasizes the upside of doing this well. It actually says it builds trust.
Which sounds a bit strange at first,
Yeah.
right? Disagreeing builds trust.
Yeah. Counterintuitive, maybe?
But when you think about it, openly talking through differences, respectfully, it can strengthen relationships. It shows you're willing to engage, honestly.
It shows vulnerability, maybe,
Yeah.
and respect for the other person's mind.
Exactly. And the source also notes that, it shows intelligence, not just knowing your own stuff, but being able to explain it clearly while, properly engaging with someone else's idea.
So handled right, a disagreement isn't a fight. It's
An opportunity
yeah.
for a really productive conversation where you actually explore ideas instead of just batting them away.
Okay, but the flip side is important too. The source contrasts that with what happens when it goes wrong, harsh words, not being clear.
Oh, definitely. That approach, it just slams the door shut on communication.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how you feel. Someone just hits you with, "You're wrong." Defenses shoot straight up.
Totally.
And the source points out, this makes you sound aggressive. Or maybe defensive, which isn't great either.
Doesn't look good, especially professionally.
Right? Undermines your credibility. Makes you seem like you can't handle a different viewpoint without getting hostile.
So the big takeaway here, the foundation for everything else, is that it's not just about being right, it's the approach.
Yes. It's not only what you say, it's the how, the tone, the phrasing, the respect you show.
That's the difference between like a messy clash and a conversation that actually goes somewhere.
A constructive exchange, exactly.
Okay, so let's dig into the practical tools. The source gives us actual language, starting with agreement. And it's smart about, it shows that agreeing isn't just one thing.
No, there are definitely shades of agreement, levels.
Right.
So for those times when you're completely on the same page, the source has phrases for strong agreement, really direct stuff. Things like, "I completely agree," or "Absolutely, you're totally right. Even that's exactly what I was thinking." They signal, full-throated support, enthusiasm.
Got it. Leaves no doubt. But conversations are often messier, right? Sometimes you agree, but maybe just partly, or you want to add your own 2 cents.
Yeah, exactly. And the source calls this mild agreement or adding your view. And the phrases here are super useful for that more nuanced situation.
Give us some examples.
Okay, so things like, "I agree to some extent." That signals, okay, I'm with you partway.
Acknowledges some common ground.
Right. Or, "That's true." And I'd add, that one's great because you explicitly say that's true. Validating them before you bring in your related point makes it smoother.
Nice. What else?
I see your point. This one acknowledges their perspective, even if you don't fully agree. It's a crucial little step before maybe offering a different take later.
Shows you heard them.
Exactly. And I'd also say, perfect for saying, yes, you nailed it, while also adding your own contribution on top.
The source also mentions agreeing by sharing experiences, right? Using examples.
Oh yeah, that's powerful. It makes the agreement feel more grounded, more human.
How so?
Well, saying something like, "Yeah, and I've experienced something similar," or "I've actually seen that happen too." It's like offering real-world evidence for their point.
Makes it more concrete.
Yeah, more personal, more solid. That reminds me of, it's
Yeah.
another good one. It connects their idea to something else relevant, kind of reinforcing it through association.
So having these different options is key. It's not just yes or no. You have a whole palette.
Allows you to fine-tune your response, calibrate it to exactly how much you agree and how you want to position yourself in the conversation. Adds layers.
It lets you handle the nuances. Because sometimes you are 100% aligned, but other times you're building on their idea or just acknowledging something they said is valid.
Precisely. It reflects the complexity of real talk.
Okay, now for the trickier part. The area where conversations often, well, go sideways. Disagreeing.
The minefield.
Yeah. And the source points out the biggest mistake right away. Don't just lead with, you're wrong.
Oh, yeah. Cardinal sin. Instant shutdown. It's like launching an attack.
Puts them straight on the defensive.
Completely.
Yeah.
And the source stresses your goal isn't usually to win some kind of fight or prove them utterly wrong. It's more about presenting a different view in a way they might actually hear.
So it offers alternatives, polite disagreement phrases, the kind that build a bridge instead of burning it.
Right. And often they start by acknowledging the other person's point first. Like,
I see what you mean, but you're literally saying, I get you, before you pivot to your different angle.
okay, that makes sense.
Or try, that's one way to look at it. Another perspective might be. This frames your idea as just another possibility, not the absolute truth. It invites comparison, not a fight.
Less confrontational.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I understand your point, though I have a different take. Works similarly. Shows you've processed their idea before offering yours.
What about being more direct? Like, I don't agree?
You can, but the source suggests softening even that. Like, I'm not sure I agree, here's why. The here's why is crucial. It signals you're not just contradicting, you're offering reasons. It becomes an explained perspective.
Okay. And the source also mentions softening phrases. Things that aren't direct disagreement but pave the way.
Yes. These are really insightful. They kind of cushion the blow of the disagreement.
Like what kind of phrases?
Using things like, to be honest. It can signal you're about to share something potentially tricky or different. Or, it could be just me, but...
Oh, I like that. Adds humility. Right. Or, I might be wrong, but I think. Same effect. It makes your opinion feel less like you're declaring absolute fact against their view.
Takes the pressure off somehow. You're saying, look, this is just how I see it.
Exactly. It lowers the stakes. And something like, let me offer a different perspective, is very clear and polite about your intention. No surprises.
The source had a good example, didn't it? About remote work.
Yeah, that was a good one. So someone argues remote work is less productive instead of just batting it down.
You don't say, that's wrong.
No. The source suggests starting with acknowledgement. I see your point about remote work maybe being less productive for some things. You validate their concern first. Then you introduce your view, maybe softened. However, in my experience, or for some roles, I've found it often helps with focus and time management, which can actually boost productivity.
So you acknowledge, you bridge with however or but, and then you state your different view, often giving a reason or context.
That's the structure. Acknowledge, bridge, state your view politely, maybe with a softener. That's the diplomatic core the source presents. It respects the other person, makes them more likely to listen.
It avoids making them feel attacked so they can actually consider what you're saying.
Exactly. It encourages consideration, not just offense.
But, okay, the source also warns us words aren't everything. The how includes your tone, your body language.
Oh, massively. You could say the most perfectly polite phrase from the source.
So, but if you say it dripping with sarcasm.
Or with your arms crossed, glaring. Yeah, message completely lost. Or worse, sends a contradictory, aggressive message.
Right. And the source lists some verbal no-nos, aggressive phrases that just kill the conversation.
Yeah, things that sound dismissive or blunt, like you don't get it. Ugh.
Or just, that's not true, or no way, that's wrong.
And the ultimate shutdown, whatever.
Yeah, that just signals complete disrespect.
These aren't just impolite. They basically say, I don't value your thinking.
And the source gives alternatives, right? Ways to achieve the same goal, like clarifying something without being aggressive.
Exactly. Instead of you don't get it, which is accusatory, try something helpful like, let me clarify what I meant. Puts the onus on you.
Okay. And instead of that's wrong.
Maybe something softer like, there may be another way to look at it, or simply, I have a slightly different opinion. It invites discussion, not a fight.
Makes sense. And beneath all this, the nonverbals are working overtime.
Absolutely critical. The source really hammers this. Tone of voice is huge.
Keep it.
Even. Calm. No sharp edges. Don't raise your voice. It even suggests actively emphasizing positive words like, that's interesting, or that's a great point before you introduce your disagreement.
Ah, so you appreciated their input first.
Yeah. Makes the disagreement feel less like a rejection. And using pauses can be powerful too. Shows you're thinking, gives your counterpoint more weight when it lands.
And the body language. What does the source say there?
It's the visual confirmation of your verbal message. So, nodding while they speak shows active listening. Makes your disagreement seem considered, not just reactive.
Keep an open posture.
Definitely. No crossed arms that reads as defensive or closed off. A slight smile can really soften things.
And obviously avoid the negative stuff.
Oh, yeah. Eye rolling. Big sighs. Those are like nonverbal attacks. Utterly dismissive. These physical cues aren't just minor details. They fundamentally shape how your words are received.
They signal if you're genuinely open to talking or just waiting to pounce.
Pretty much. Tells them if it's a dialogue or a monologue battle.
The source then does a really nice job pulling this all together with examples. Takes it out of theory and into, like, real situations.
Yeah, those examples are helpful. Like the work one, rushing a product launch.
Right. Instead of just, no, that's a terrible idea.
Which gets you nowhere. The source suggests something like, that's an interesting idea. Start positive, acknowledge. I wonder if we might risk missing some quality checks, though. Gentle introduction of the concern, framed as a question or wonder.
Invites discussion about the trade-offs, doesn't just kill the idea.
Exactly. Or the classic social one, pineapple on pizza.
Ah, yes. The eternal debate.
The source gives a nice, light-touch example. Haha, I know loads of people love it, acknowledging the other side. I'm not really a fan myself, stating your view clearly but personally. But hey, each to their own. Softening, respecting the difference.
Keeps it friendly. You're clear, but it's obviously just a preference.
And for a heavier topic, like social media's impact, the source shows acknowledging the feeling behind their point.
How so?
Like saying, I get why you feel that way, validates their emotional experience. Then you offer your alternative. At the same time, I've also seen it be a lifeline for connecting people who might feel isolated otherwise. You share your perspective based on different observations.
Respects their reality while presenting yours as also valid.
Yeah. And the source also touched on being strategic with vocabulary choices, right? Beyond just the disagreement phrases.
Yeah, choosing words carefully for nuance.
Exactly. Instead of just saying, I don't like it, or it's bad, which are pretty blunt and subjective.
Try something else.
Yeah, maybe say you find something limiting or unhelpful. It's less personal, less confrontational, and it actually explains why you have an issue.
More specific.
Right. Or using words like challenge or question or reframe instead of just disagree. It sounds more intellectual, like you're engaging with the idea itself, not just rejecting it.
So instead of that report is bad, maybe.
Maybe. I'd like to challenge some of the core assumptions in that report. Or I find the conclusion a bit limiting because it overlooks X. It's specific, less personal, much less likely to make someone defensive.
That makes a lot of sense. And the source also had that little section on idioms, didn't it? Like an expression deep dive.
Oh, yeah, those are useful cultural shortcuts. Like, let's agree to disagree.
When do you use that?
It's basically a polite flag you wave when you realize you're at an impasse. You're not going to convince each other, so you mutually decide to stop arguing about it without any hard feelings.
A diplomatic off-ramp keeps the relationship intact.
Exactly. It means we respect each other enough to stop this unproductive argument. Another good one? Yeah. That's a fair point.
Simple and effective.
Yeah. It acknowledges something valid the other person said, even if you still disagree overall, shows you were actually listening and thinking critically.
Validates a part of their logic.
And I see it differently. Very gentle, very non-confrontational way to state your disagreement. Frames it purely as your perspective.
Not an attack on theirs. What about I beg to differ?
That was a bit more formal, the source notes. Good for maybe a more professional or structured settings when you want to clearly signal a different opinion.
Okay, and we're not quite on the same page.
Very common, very polite way to signal there's some misunderstanding or a difference in viewpoint that needs sorting out. Less direct than saying you're wrong or I disagree.
So these idioms add another layer of, like, social grace.
They really do. They pack a lot of meaning about attitude and respect into a short phrase. Very useful in English.
Okay, so if we pull all this together from the source, the language, the tone, the body language, the sort of underlying respect, what's the biggest takeaway for you? What really stands out?
For me, it's realizing this isn't just about memorizing phrases, it's way more sophisticated. It's about weaving together the right words with empathy, really trying to grasp their viewpoint.
Even if you think it's wrong.
Especially then. And timing, knowing when to jump in, when to listen, and underpinning it all is just basic respect for the person you're talking to.
It's about seeing conflict, as the source suggests, not as something terrifying to avoid,
Right.
but as something you can actually navigate. And doing that well takes conscious effort, practice.
Definitely. The source really frames it as a skill you build over time. Like pay attention to conversations around you, notice when people do it well or not so well.
Learn from observation.
And consciously try out some of these techniques yourself, see how they feel, how they land.
And the final thought the source leaves us mulling over is quite profound, really. That every disagreement, if you handle it with these tools, with this kind of mindset, it isn't just a hurdle to get over. It's actually a chance to connect better, maybe challenge your own assumptions, and really understand where someone else is coming from, even if you never end up agreeing with them.
So it's an opportunity for growth,
Right.
really, just disguised as a disagreement.
Exactly. That feels like the real heart of this deep dive, doesn't it? We really hope exploring the source gives you listening a better map and maybe some better tools for navigating all those agreements and disagreements in your own world. Okay, welcome everyone to this deep dive. We've got some really interesting source material today, actually shared by one of you listening. It's excerpts from a guide called Disagree Like a Pro, Mastering English Argumentation.
Yeah, and this feels super relevant, doesn't it? I mean, who hasn't found themselves needing to disagree in English and kind of wondering, how do I do this without, causing offense or sounding rude?
Exactly, it's a balancing act. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. Let's unpack these sources, pull out the key takeaways, and figure out what this guide tells us about getting better at this tricky skill. Constructively, that is.
Constructively is the key word. It's about disagreeing well, not just disagreeing.
And just quickly, before we really dive in, if you find these deep dives useful for getting up to speed on topics quickly, please do think about subscribing to the channel, English Easy here. It honestly makes a huge difference and helps us keep doing this.
Okay, so let's get into the meat of it. The introduction of this source material starts with a pretty bold claim, I thought. It says arguing, in English, isn't really about fighting or conflict.
Okay, so if it's not fighting, what is it then?
It frames it as a structured conversation. That's the term they use.
A structured conversation. I like that. That immediately changes the feeling, doesn't it? Less about aggression, more about building something. Or testing something.
Exactly. Testing ideas. It's a space where you present your view, you listen to others challenge it, you defend it, but all with clarity and, this is crucial, with respect.
So the goal isn't just to win.
Not at all. The source is clear on that. It's about exploring different perspectives, understanding where others are coming from.
And the guide promises to give you the tools for that, right? Like how to disagree without being rude, useful phrases, how to stay calm when defending your point.
Yeah, examples, practice ideas, the whole package, basically.
Yeah.
Aimed at building confidence so you can jump into these conversations effectively.
Okay, so where does it start? If you want to argue like a pro, what's the first step according to this material?
Well, it starts with the foundations. Before you even get into the how-to, it asks, what actually makes a good argument in the first place?
Right, the essential ingredients. What are they?
There are a few key things. First, you need a clear position. You actually have to know what you stand for on the issue. Seems obvious, but
Sometimes you kind of feel strongly, but haven't quite pinned down why or what exactly.
Precisely. Then you need evidence or some kind of logical reasoning. You can't just say, because I think so.
Okay, clear position, solid reasons. What else?
Then comes the interpersonal stuff. Maintaining a respectful tone consistently. Listening first. That's a big one. Really hearing the other person before you jump in.
That's hard sometimes, isn't it? When you're eager to respond.
It really is. And finally, keeping your voice calm, even if it's a topic you feel strongly about.
That listening point feels really central.
It is. And the source underlines this with a motto right near the start. It says something like, remember, winning an argument is not the goal. Being understood and staying respectful, that's mastery.
Wow. Okay, that flips the script for a lot of people, I think. It's not debate club rules where you score points.
Exactly. It's about connection and clarity, even through disagreement. It's a shift towards maybe collaborative sense-making, even if you ultimately don't agree.
Okay, that's a powerful foundation. Mindset shift. Check. Respect, listening, calm voice. Check. Knowing your position and having reasons.
Check.
So how do you actually present that argument effectively? How do you structure it?
Right, because just having the ingredients isn't enough. You need a recipe. The source offers a really simple, practical one in its second part. It's a 3-step formula. Point, proof, response.
Point, proof, response. Okay, sounds straightforward. How does it work in practice? Give an example, right?
Yeah, they use remote work. So, step 1, state your point clearly. Example, I believe that remote work increases productivity. Simple, direct statement of your view.
Got it. Point made. Step 2.
Step 2 is the proof. Give your reason, your evidence, your why. Example, studies have shown that flexible hours improve focus. You're backing up the initial claim.
Okay, makes sense. Point, then the support. What's the response part?
The response is where you show you've thought a bit wider. You anticipate or acknowledge a counter-argument or different perspective. Example, while some miss the social aspect, digital tools can fill that gap.
Ah, okay. So you're showing you see the other side, but you have a counter to their potential objection, or you're putting it in context.
Exactly. It shows you're not just operating in an echo chamber. You've considered alternatives or downsides.
Point-proof response. I can see how that structure would make you sound much more organized and thoughtful.
Definitely. It stops you from just rambling or throwing out disconnected statements. It gives your argument a clear, logical flow that's easier for others to follow and engage with.
It feels like a mini essay structure almost, but for speaking.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
A very concise one. It forces you to be clear on your main idea, your justification, and how it fits into the bigger picture.
Okay, structure is vital, but then there's the actual language you use. The source has a whole section on useful phrases, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, and this is super practical. These aren't just filler words. They are like conversational tools. They help you navigate the discussion smoothly and politely.
So what kind of phrases are we talking about?
Well, they break it down. For instance, when you want to introduce your point, instead of just starting, you might say something like, the way I see it. Or, a bit more formally, if I may, I'd like to offer a different view.
Right. Those signal what you're about to do. It prepares the listener.
Yeah.
Less jarring than just contradicting someone flat out.
Exactly. And then there are phrases for responding to others. Crucially, acknowledging what they said first. Like, I see where you're coming from, but, or you raise a valid concern, however.
That acknowledgement is key, isn't it? Shows you're listening.
Totally.
Yeah.
It validates their contribution before you pivot to your own point. The but, or however, then signals the shift.
What about when you're not sure you understood them correctly?
Good question. The source lists phrases for clarification. Things like, can you explain what you mean by? Or, just to clarify, are you saying that? Super important to avoid arguing about misunderstandings.
Definitely. And what if you kind of agree, but not entirely?
Partial agreement.
Yeah.
Very useful. Phrases like, I agree with that to some extent, or you're right about that part. Finding common ground, even small bits, can really lower the tension.
Yeah, shows you're looking for connection, not just conflict. Okay, but then you get to the point where you just disagree. How do you say that tactfully?
That's where the polite disagreement phrases come in. Things like, I'm afraid I have to disagree, or maybe, with all due respect, I don't share that view. They're clear, but they maintain that respectful tone we talked about.
It's interesting how much emphasis is put on these specific phrasings in English.
Well, I think it reflects how politeness often works in English-speaking cultures, especially in more formal or professional settings. Directness can sometimes be perceived as bluntness or aggression, so these phrases act as softeners. They let you be clear about your stance without damaging the relationship or derailing the conversation.
So it's about navigating the social aspect as much as the logical one.
Absolutely. They're linguistic tools for social navigation during disagreement.
Okay, so we have structure, and we have these useful navigating phrases. The source also mentions something about power verbs. What's that about?
Yeah, this is about making your points land with more impact and precision. It's about choosing stronger, more specific verbs instead of relying on weaker, more general ones all the time.
So like upgrading your vocabulary a bit.
Exactly, but strategically. For example, instead of just always saying I think or I say, the source suggests verbs like I argue, I assert, I state, I believe, or I suggest. They carry different nuances.
Okay, and for proving a point.
Instead of just prove, which can sound quite strong, maybe demonstrate, show, or confirm.
And for disagreeing itself.
Rather than just disagree,
Yeah.
you could use oppose, challenge, or reject, depending on the context and how strong you want to be.
Does it give an example of how this changes the feel?
It does, a really clear one. It contrasts, I think you're wrong, which is very direct, potentially confrontational.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like a personal attack, almost.
Right. It contrasts that with, I challenge that view based on the evidence. See the difference?
Huge difference. The second one uses a power verb, challenge, focuses on the view and the evidence, not the person, and sounds much more professional, considered.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from personal opinion or conflict to a reasoned, evidence-based discussion. It aligns perfectly with that core idea.
Yeah.
Debate the idea, not the person.
Okay, so word choice matters. Structure matters. What about how you actually sound, your voice, your delivery?
Yes, tone control. Section 5 in the source material. This is critical. It emphasizes that how you say something can be just as important, if not more so, than what you say. Your voice, your speed, even your facial expression, they all send signals.
So rule number 1 is probably stay calm.
Absolutely. Speak calmly, even if the topic is heated. A calm voice suggests confidence and rationality. Shouting or sounding agitated tends to undermine your points and make the other person defensive.
And facial expressions, no eye rolling.
Definitely no eye rolling, or sighing loudly, or smirking. Keep it neutral and engaged. Show respect non-verbally, too.
The source also mentioned pausing. How does that help?
Pausing is powerful. It gives you a moment to think, sure, but it also signals to the other person that you're considering their points carefully. It adds weight to what you say next. It stops the conversation from feeling like a rushed battle.
And emphasizing certain words.
Yeah, like stressing a key word for impact. I strongly believe.
Right.
Or the evidence clearly shows.
Yeah.
It directs attention without raising your overall volume.
And there was that interesting tip about using a slightly lower tone.
Yes. The idea being that a slightly lower pitch can convey authority and credibility more effectively than a higher, perhaps more strained-sounding pitch. Not about being monotone, just grounded.
Okay, so we're building a picture here. Right mindset, clear structure, careful language, controlled tone. What are the big don'ts? What mistakes does the source warn against?
It flags several common pitfalls that can quickly turn a constructive argument into an unproductive conflict. Number 1 is interrupting.
Always tempting, but yeah, let them finish.
Let them finish. It goes back to that listening point. The second huge mistake is attacking the person, not the idea. Ad hominem attacks, basically.
Like the example they gave, you clearly don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly that kind of thing. It's dismissive, disrespectful, and completely unproductive. You need to focus critique on the substance of their argument, not on them personally.
So instead of you're wrong, it's I see it differently because, or the data suggests otherwise.
Precisely. Keep it focused on the issue. Another mistake is getting overly emotional.
Hard to avoid sometimes, but yeah.
Passion is fine, but when strong emotions like anger or frustration take over, your logic tends to fly out the window and you might say things you regret. It also escalates tension. Trying to stay centered is key.
And the last one ties back to structure, I think.
It does. Losing track of the main point, getting sidetracked on minor details or going off on tangents. Sticking to that clear structure, maybe even having notes if it's a more formal setting, helps prevent this. Stay focused on the core disagreement.
Makes sense. Keep the main thing the main thing.
You got it.
The source also includes some real-world examples and more advanced phrases, right, to see it all in action.
Yeah, it touches on topics like college costs, remote work again, social media. Not to debate the topics themselves in the guide, but to illustrate how you'd apply these principles.
It's like showing nuance, acknowledging complexity.
Exactly. For instance, discussing remote work. It would show how to argue for its benefits, while also fairly acknowledging that it might not suit every industry or individual. It demonstrates balanced argumentation.
And the advanced expressions, what are those like?
They're phrases that can elevate the discussion, make you sound more thoughtful, things like, let's unpack that idea for a second, suggesting you want to analyze something more deeply.
Okay, like that one.
Or, let's not lose sight of the bigger picture, which helps redirect if the conversation gets stuck in the weeds. They signal a more sophisticated engagement with the topic.
So ways to sound more like a facilitator of understanding, maybe, rather than just a participant stating opinions.
That's a good way to put it. They add a layer of metacognition to the conversation.
And finally, it gets really practical with practice ideas and idioms, because reading about it is one thing.
Doing it is another. Yeah, it suggests things like actually practicing the phrases out loud. Using prompts, maybe pick a common controversial topic and try arguing for or against it.
And recording yourself.
Yeah, recording yourself speaking, that sounds maybe a bit awkward, but it's incredibly useful for hearing how you actually sound, your tone, your clarity. your use of fillers, things you might not notice otherwise.
That's a great tip. Objective feedback. What about the idioms?
Idioms add that natural flavor. The source includes common ones used in discussions, like, let's agree to disagree.
Ah, the classic way to end a deadlock politely.
Right. Or you hit the nail on the head, meaning you've identified the exact point. Or using phrases like, to be fair, to introduce a balancing point.
These make the conversation feel less textbook and more like how people actually talk.
Exactly. They add fluency and show a deeper comfort level with navigating these kinds of English conversations.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, if you had to distill the core message from these source materials about disagreeing like a pro in English, what would it be?
I think it boils down to this. Effective argumentation in English isn't about being the loudest or scoring points or winning. It's fundamentally about active listening, expressing yourself clearly and respectfully, supporting your points with reasons, and staying calm and composed.
And there was that really encouraging point about grammar, too.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial. The source says something like, you don't need perfect grammar. You need precision plus presence.
Precision and presence. What does that mean exactly?
Precision in making your point clear, using the right words, perhaps like those power verbs, and presence meaning being fully engaged, listening actively, responding thoughtfully. It shifts the focus from worrying about every little grammatical error to communicating effectively.
That probably takes a lot of pressure off learners. Focus on clarity and engagement first.
I think so. And the source leaves us with a clear call to action, a way to practice this.
Right, the challenge. What was it again?
Basically, pick a topic you find interesting, one with different viewpoints. Think about the arguments for and against it. Maybe use that point-proof response structure. And then practice saying them out loud.
Maybe even record yourself doing it. Put all these pieces together.
Exactly. Turn the theory into practice. That's how you build the skill.
So this deep dive really highlights that disagreeing well is, well, it's a complex skill. It involves your mindset, how you structure thoughts, the specific words you choose, how you sound, and being aware of common traps. All built on respect and focusing on ideas.
It really is multi-layered, which leads to, I think, a final thought-provoking question for you, the listener, based on all this.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you really embrace these principles, the focus on understanding over winning, the structure, the respectful language, the calm tone, how might that change things for you? Not just how you disagree in English, but maybe the actual outcomes of those conversations. Could it lead to better understanding, stronger connections, even when you don't end up seeing eye to eye?
How does focusing on the process of disagreeing will change the quality of the interaction itself? That's definitely something to mull over.
Food for thought.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this exploration of mastering English argumentation. Hope you found it useful.
Yeah, thanks for sticking with us through this deep dive.